Hey guys, today I want to talk about a fun topic, at least to me, and that's pen paling. Every time I mention that I have pen pals, I always get a lot of questions regarding pen pals and how to do it and how to find them and all the things, and so I wanted to create this video. Now, I started back with pen paling just over a year ago. It's been maybe about 15 months now, and let me just say, this has been a complete different experience than when I tried this as a teenager. Back then, I was a subscriber of the Brio magazine, which is like a Christian girls magazine, and they hooked you up with a pen pal, and I was probably the worst pen pal on the planet. But I feel like I have really hit my pen paling stride now, and I feel like I have some tips and tricks and different suggestions to offer you. Okay, before we get really into the whole pen paling thing, the first thing I want to point out is just to make sure that you're being safe as you go about this. And there's a few different ways you can do this. When you give your address to a pen pal, you could start by giving a post office box. Now, sometimes you can just rent one of these. Sometimes you can use someone else's. For my own pen pals, I use my actual address, which is my house address, but my town doesn't have any post office boxes available. So when I do need to receive something from someone I don't really know, I use my parents' P.O. box, and I see them on a regular basis, so then I can get my stuff that has been sent there, and then not everyone needs to know where I live. So be creative on maybe how you can give your address. Maybe if you are really not sure, don't give out like your full name. Like, people don't always need to know your first and last name. And if anything just feels off in the process, go ahead and stop. I think one of the best things to do, and I'll talk about this when it's how to find pen pals, but is to check them out online in some way first, and you can kind of tell if someone's a real person or not. So let's get into where to find pen pals. So the way I found my pen pals was through Instagram. I was actually looking for pen pals for my daughter, I believe, first, and then a bunch of adults were like, oh, I want to be a pen pal too. And a lot of them I had frequent conversations or interactions with on Instagram or on YouTube. A couple of my pen pals are also fellow YouTubers, so they have a presence online, and it's not just a random Instagram account with like 3 pictures and you can't tell if they just stole them off the internet somewhere or if it's really that person. So I found Instagram to be a really good place for myself to find pen pals. There are also websites, and there's even a Instagram hashtag, I think it's pen pals wanted, that you can find pen pals, but often I find on those kinds of different sites you're finding just people that want pretty pen pal letters and not necessarily a like letter, I don't know, hardcore on the letter kind of pen pal. I think your best bet is either to have someone that you know. If you know someone in real life that wants to be a pen pal, that's great too. Or find someone that you interact with online. The other option is something that I'm going to be doing is creating a form, and I'm going to have the link in the description. If you guys are interested in pen pals and want to sign up, go to the link in my description here, and I will try to match up pen pals if we get a couple people interested, and I'll have some information on there so you guys can kind of check each other out online before deciding for sure if you want to do that. So I'm going to leave that open until the end of February. If you're watching this at the end of February, check out the description. Maybe I'll have some kind of like alternative for what else you could be doing as far as pen pals go. Also, when you're looking for pen pals, I would suggest picking more pen pals at the beginning than you think you actually want. And this can be a little bit hard to do because you don't know how much you're actually going to be wanting to write. But when I started last year, I started out with 6 pen pals, and 2 of them I think only sent me 1 letter, and I never heard from them again. And as someone that was a terrible pen pal as a teenager, I can totally understand this, but just know that not everyone is going to follow through. Some people are going to fall off the wagon right away, and some people will fall off the wagon a little bit down the road. That's okay, but if you want to have pen pals, it's sometimes it's nicer to start with a little bit more than you think you're actually going to want. Okay, I want to cover a few little pen pal etiquette things, and then we'll get into writing your first letter, what to include in letters, and all that fun stuff. So pen pal etiquette. How I like to do it is I like to send out a letter whenever I receive one. I find this the easiest if after I receive a letter, what I do is I go ahead and I stamp the date that I received it on the back of the envelope. This is fun because I can see when it left their city and I can see when it arrived at mine. So I can see kind of throughout the year how long it takes a letter to get to me. I find that fascinating. Call me nerdy if you want to. And then last year, one of my goals for 2021 was to respond to my pen pal letters within 1 week of receiving the letter. And so because I stamped it, I knew exactly when I had received it and I needed to reply within a week. I think there was 2 times where it was like 9-10 days that it took me to respond. That's okay. It was still having that goal of responding within 1 week made such a difference in how quickly I responded, because I think otherwise I would have let them pile up and I would have felt overwhelmed and I probably would have fallen off the bandwagon myself. Another piece of pen pal etiquette is let them know if you're going to be moving so they can hold off on their letters for a bit if you're not using a forwarding service, or they kind of know what's going on in your life. If you're going to be moving, you might take a little bit of time off. And just in general, if your life is feeling a little bit overwhelming and you can't write for the moment, if you have their, non-snail mail, like email or something, information, just quickly zap them a notice and say you're not dropping off the face of the earth, you just need a little bit of time, or send them like a quick little postcard or something and let them know that you'll be in touch when you're ready for that. And then the other thing is, I haven't had this experience, but I know my daughter has, where she has had pen pals who write her a letter every single week, but they never respond to any of the questions that she asked. I like to see pen paling, or I like to think of it more as like passing a ball back and forth, and instead of just getting pummeled by the ball. Because my daughter was getting a lot of responses from one of her pen pals constantly, a lot of letters, but they were never asking any questions, never answering any questions, and there was so many coming she didn't know what to do. She kind of just got overwhelmed, and then that person just completely stopped writing altogether. So I think you're better off just, like slow and steady wins the race. Do like the turtle does. Going back and forth, that seems to work a lot better. Okay, so when you're writing your very first pen pal letter, what do you write? There's a few things that I like to include. The very first thing that I often do, not always, I'm not always great at this, but is I like to include a separate card with my address on it that they can tuck away somewhere, take a picture of, whatever, so they have my address and they don't have to like go out and pull out the letters or the envelope or whatever to find my address each time. And then for your first letter, I'd say just do a nice introduction of yourself. Let them know your hobbies, your family, how you spend your time, a little bit about yourself. You can get as personal or not as you want, depending how comfortable you feel with a person. One thing that I like to do, especially for the first few letters, is include a list of questions that I want them to answer, but then also answer those questions myself, because it gets really confusing when you get questions from people but they don't let you know their answers. So I like to, pretty much anytime I ask a question of someone, I also give my answer to that question. And then one thing I should note, kind of like with that volleyball back and forth with pen pal letters, is interact with your pen pal a little bit ahead of time and find out which one of you is going to be writing that first letter. Because if you both write introduction letters and ask the same questions, then it can get very confusing onto how do you answer this letter, because you both just kind of wrote the same thing. So I think it's best if someone starts and then the next person can have the ball/letter and pass it back. I think that works a lot better. Okay, so for me, pen paling, the bulk of it is the actual letter. It does not need to be a pretty fancy thing. I do know that there are places online that love that, and that is the reason behind pen paling. I do enjoy making my letters pretty when I have time, but when I'm in a season of overwhelm or something, I will just write a letter. I won't decorate it, I won't do anything, I'll just write a letter. But then when I have more time, I do like to decorate my letters. I like mixed media journaling and stuff, so that works well with pen paling. And then also sometimes I like to include some extra stuff. So include a separate page of questions for them to answer. You can also include your favorite recipes, or maybe some stickers or stationery, or your favorite tea. You can also share like a list of your favorite songs at the moment. Stuff like that. Just little things that give it a little bit more. It's totally not necessary, but it's a fun little addition. And then another thing that I do sometimes, I've done a couple times, is make my actual structure of my letter more fun. This probably has a name, like it's like a pocket letter something that I have created a few times. It's using an envelope and kind of like a card, and then you fold it in. I'll insert some clips because that will probably make a whole lot more sense than my explanation, but it can be fun just to throw in something a little bit different. Sometimes I like to include Bible verses and things that are kind of hitting me at the moment. If you have a bunch of pen pals or you're a forgetful person, something that you can do too is take pictures of your letters, especially in the beginning, or if you're writing a bunch of pen pals at one time. It can be hard to remember what you have included, or even sometimes when people answer questions and they don't share like what the question was, then you can go back to your picture and be like, okay, that's what I asked them and this is their response to that question. I did that for the first few letters that I wrote, especially since I started writing 6 pen pals at one time, and then I couldn't keep track of what I had written to each person for the first while. That really helped. And then as time goes on, you should just be continuing this conversation, continuing to share what's going on in your life. I like to share different prayer requests with my pen pals, different routines, different things I'm working on, different struggles that I'm having, all sorts of different things. It's been a great way to form relationships with people around the world. One thing that I've been terrible at that I would suggest doing and would like to do better myself, or do myself, is to send your pen pals birthday cards. I have totally failed in that area for sure. I'm thankful that I was doing the back and forth of the letters, but in the next while I would like to get better at sending pen pals birthday cards. So if you are my pen pal, hopefully I'll get better at that in the next year or so. Yeah, so if you guys have pen pals, I would love to hear maybe like where you found them, if you send them different things, any kind of like pen pal tips and tricks that you guys have. I would suggest, so what I do is I have this Kiwi crate box that was my daughter's that I have all my pen pal letters in, and I currently just store them in there by the date that I've received them. I know some people like to package all their letters from this pen pal in one section and this pen pal from another. I have all mine in one, and I just put them in order by date. That way when I need to reply to a letter or look back on something, I have a little bit of organization there. And yeah, if you guys are wanting a pen pal, go ahead and fill out the form below, and I will hopefully have enough interest that I can match some of you up if you're interested. And I think that's all in regards to pen pals. Thanks so much for watching, guys.